That's it. We're live. We didn't.
Live
I said
again.
that's it. I said that as if it was over. It's not over. It's just starting. It's brand new. I'm like, that's it. We're live. Here we go. Let's do this. Welcome to a live stream with Jessica Ethridge, the South Carolina candidate for lieutenant governor on the Libertarian ticket. I'm Kasie Whitener, our South Carolina Libertarian Party state vice chair. Right now, introducing myself to nobody because there's nobody watching our live stream. Jessica, welcome to the live stream.
Thank you. We haven't done one of these in a little while.
It has been a while. We're doing this on the regular with our Parenting Porcupines show, and we are on our Parenting Porcupines channels right now, and hopefully about to be shared across all of our LP channels. And then we're on your Facebook page that was made specifically because you are running for lieutenant governor. So start first with like people who don't yet know you. Tell them how you got talked into running for lieutenant governor.
I feel like this is a lot of people's favorite story. So I'm actually the state second vice chair, and I am the membership committee chair, and I am the Greenville County Party secretary. And so we were at our Greenville County Party meeting, and we were talking about Bruce. This was before we had our nominating convention. And we were talking about him as a candidate. What did everybody think and that sort of thing. And, we were all in agreement. We didn't know much about him. And so we were like, well, we should get him a really strong running mate. We should get him somebody that people can relate to and that sort of thing. And I was talking to Steve Dasbach, who's our campaign chair and also our county chair in Greenville. And I made a joke that maybe I should just do it. And his eyes lit up like light bulbs. And he was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "What? Are you serious right now?" And he was like, "Yes, like I will support this." And so I was like, "Well, I'll talk to my family." And so I talked to my family, I talked to my boss, and just made sure that everybody was kind of understanding what the requirements would be. And everybody got on board. And all of my LP friends, you and Melissa Kuchar, who does Parenting Porcupines with us, our state chair, Kasie Crow, the Lions, who are really active in the party. Everybody was just super supportive. And Matt Hicks, most people know Matt. But everybody was just like, "Yeah, you got to do this." And I felt like the opportunity was there for a reason. I felt like it was something that I could do well if I were elected. And so here we are, running for office. Something I said I would never do.
You've been in it. Yeah, but you've been in it now since June, right? Because that was nominating convention. What has surprised you the most about running for office? Like, what has surprised you? Because we're trying to get people to become candidates all the time. And it's hard to prepare people to do this. So like, what's the thing that like you didn't expect it, but here's what's happening?
With things as polarized as they are now, because there is a lot of, me against the world mentality, I think, in politics particularly. I have been very surprised how many people have been receptive. And when I talk to them about the things that are impacting them, and this has probably been my favorite thing about the campaign, is going out and talking to people about what is impacting them in their businesses, what is impacting them in their homes, and then talking to them about what libertarian solutions would look like. And so I think that was the thing that I was worried was going to be the most difficult, but it has not. And it has actually been the most rewarding part, because I have really enjoyed like just all the South Carolinians I've gotten to talk to in all the different pockets of the state. It's been incredible.
One of the strategies that we put in place early on was to go to local events, to go to like you and I went to the barbecue festival up in Greer, and you went to Uniquely Union, and these small town events. Like, what have you learned from being in those small town rural events, talking to just voters face to face? What are some of the things they're telling you?
Taxes are a big issue. Because a lot of money is taken from our paychecks. And that's money, especially now with inflation, money that families could be using to support themselves, money that people could be using to support extended family, friends, people in their community. So I think that's a really big one. corruption. Well, I'm not going to say which town I was in, but
Right.
one of the towns I was in, there were several vendors and other candidates actually that I spoke with who were local candidates, Republicans and Democrats. There's a lot of local politics, a lot of corruption in the city councils, county councils, and so that type of thing was a concern. And then, of course, inflation. I mean, that was a common concern, was inflation. So I think those were the primary things on people's minds.
When we think about that corruption, those, the candidates that you talk to, their position is like, hey, I'm going to get out here, I'm going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
The voters are like, hey, I'm going to be voting for an alternative, right? But some of that corruption is coming from just the open pocketbooks at the federal level and at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much money flowing into these government entities
Mm-hmm.
with the idea that they're going to spend it in a particular way to solve all kinds of problems. And they are spending it in a particular way, but not necessarily the way it was intended, right?
And there's not a lot of
All
transparency there. I think that's part of the problem too, is there's not a lot of transparency. So people they're wondering, where's my money going?
Yeah.
And one of the cool things too, I just want to say, one of the cool things that I've experienced is in going to these festivals and talking to these local candidates. For instance, in Union, I ran into a girl I went to college with, and we were buddies in college, and she's running for, I think, county council there. And she's running as a Republican, but we were talking about some of the challenges that they're facing. And of course, there were some things that we disagree on fundamentally, but there were a few things where we did align. And it was like, well, you know what? If I get into office, I'll touch base with you. We'll see what we can do. Let's see what we can work on. And even if I don't, let's see what we can work on, right? What can we do together to make an impact in your community? It's been really, I get really excited. I'm very energized by it, and which is odd because, I'm not normally energized in situations like that. So it's been really cool.
No, you're more of an introvert, right? So it takes it to get that energy up and going. But it hasn't been putting on a show. It's been feeding your soul this summer. It's been a lot of fun to watch that. Yeah.
For sure.
Let's talk about some of these issues, right? So some of the things that are coming out, the people are saying, like, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? Let's start with cannabis and decriminalization. So tell us a little bit about your position on this. What should the state be thinking? What should the state be doing? What would the governor's office have to say about this?
I think that we should immediately begin working toward complete decriminalization. And I know that that's a hard thing for a lot of people to fully wrap their head around. I think the best first step is to immediately allow for the use of cannabis for medical purposes. There have been more than enough studies that have shown the benefits of cannabis as medical treatment for things like seizures, for, the side effects of chemo and radiation for cancer patients, for people with PTSD, anxiety, depression. It has been shown to help manage those symptoms, manage those illnesses. I think that that's the first step, but I think we should work toward total decriminalization, and starting to pardon some of these people who are in jail for these offenses, where there was no victim, there was no violence. They really shouldn't be crimes to begin with.
Yeah. So when we think about the medical marijuana side, medical cannabis side, the access to medical treatments that are in that family, would you consider that to be pharmacies to dispense those things, or would it be existing infrastructure and like CBD stores and things like that? How would you kind of think about the regulation, or who has access to it? How do you make that clear that these sales are for these purposes and that kind of thing?
I mean, I don't think we necessarily need to police it, right? I mean, I don't like the idea of pharmacies being responsible for dispensing it. I don't like pharmaceutical companies being brought into that conversation in any way whatsoever. When I think of pharmacies, I think of Pfizer. I think of all of those types of companies, right? So I don't like that. I think that, you should be able to go to a dispensary. I think you should be able to grow it if you want to grow it yourself. I don't understand why I don't even understand why we're having this conversation still. Like it's such a silly thing to me that this is even a conversation, that it's hard to even have the conversation, right? Because it's like, this is really simple stuff. Why is it a big deal?
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it seems to be the tide's turning in that direction of decriminalization, and there seems to be a lot of public support, popular support for decriminalization, and so I'm with you on that. I think that's a popular stance to have, and to think of decriminalizing it meaning possession of it, use of it, growth of it, sales of it, all of those things, no longer a crime.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's think or talk a little bit about women's reproductive rights. So this is commonly called the abortion issue, as far as legislators in our state, specifically in South Carolina, there is a crusade. I don't say there seems to be. There is a crusade from the governor's office to outlaw abortion. What's your stand here?
Well, first of all, I was called a radical feminist last week for my stance on this topic, which
really,
yeah. So I think that, first of all, I want to say that personally, I'm pro-life. I've never been in a situation where I've considered an abortion. I've never been in a situation where I've had to. For instance, I've never been told that the baby that I'm carrying is most likely going to kill me, or that the baby that I am carrying is not going to be viable outside of my womb. So I've never been put in a situation where I've had to make that choice. I was a single mom. I did get pregnant outside of marriage, and I chose to keep my baby because that's what I wanted to do, right? I personally, I'm pro-life. However, I do not believe that the government should have any say in that decision, whether or not a woman can make that decision or what that decision should be. I think that it is often exaggerated. People don't want to have abortions. I don't know a single woman who has had an abortion who has ever told me they were happy about it, that they were glad they did it. It was a decision that they made based on the circumstances they were in at that time in their life. Be it they were in college and they got pregnant, be it that they were having significant health issues. I know a lady who had an abortion because she was in an abusive marriage and she didn't want to bring a baby into it. That was a very hard decision for her to make. And these are the types of decisions that women have to make, that when we talk about things like total abortion bans, those are the women that this is going to impact. It's not people using abortion for birth control, because that simply is not the case in the vast majority of the situations. And so using that as like, oh, well, abortion is used as birth control, but it's not. That's not a thing. And so I think that there's no reason for the government to be involved in that decision. I think that we as communities, need to do a better job of supporting women in crisis. I think we need to do a better job of supporting families in crisis. I think we need to look for ways to provide them with other options so that that abortion is not that first option that seems the most practical. And you know, one of the things that I always say is it should never cost more to adopt a baby than it does to abort one. And I think that the adoption system is really something that we need to start looking at too very closely, and figure out how can we create a system that encourages women who are in these situations to seek that as an option, as opposed to feeling like abortion is their only choice.
I like that. I like that you are talking about community solutions. And I like that you bring up this idea that the one place where government is already deeply up to their elbows in this conversation, maybe even up to their wrists and shoulders, is the abortion system. This is a state-run process. The private abortion, or not abortion, adoption. The private adoption services, incredibly expensive, incredibly difficult to to have the resources to be a part of those. And so we already have a state foster care system, a state-run adoption system that clearly isn't working in the way that it would address women in crisis, to your exact point.
Yeah.
If we think of a Jessica lieutenant gubernatorial position, right, here you are in this position to impact policy, the operations of the state, the organization of the state, the agencies of the state. What are the things as a libertarian that you think are in state control that you think could use immediate reform that you feel like the governor ought to address right off the bat?
Well, somebody needs to get their hands on the DOT.
All right. Yeah, pick it up. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, let's just get that out of the way. I think there's so much that needs to be done. It's really hard to say, like, where do we start? And as lieutenant governor, there's really no immediate power. Like, this is not a position that comes with power. In fact, I don't think that any elected position should be seen as one that comes with power. These are positions of service, right? We elect people to represent us. We elect people to serve us. And allowing for these positions to be ones that we consider as authoritative or powerful is, I think, counterproductive to their purpose, right? I think I would really like to work with legislators to look at getting some of these things accomplished, like working toward the decriminalization of marijuana, working within our state's Department of Education to look for ways to start making reforms to our public education system in South Carolina. Obviously, hoping to make some progress with this whole women's productive rights situation. I think that's something that's really important that needs to be addressed immediately. I mean, there's just so much to do. I think the key is, though, it would be establishing relationships and looking for ways to partner with the people who are making those decisions and making those policies to try to hopefully steer them in a better direction toward more individual liberty and solutions that benefit communities, that allow communities to take control and be the village that they need to be for one another. I think that's really important to me, at least.
You talk a lot about community solutions. That's been sort of the bedrock of the campaign, has been bringing more community members into the conversation, creating more transparency, enabling community solutions that are good ones to be distributed across the state, right? So let's take what they're doing really well in one part of the state and share it across the other parts of the state, a real level of activism more so, and community engagement more so than that authoritarianism from the top down piece.
Right. Yeah, definitely bottom up. A bottom up approach, I think, would work much better, especially in South Carolina. But I do love the idea of finding the things that are working for certain areas, the organizations that are doing the good work, and then networking them with other places that have those same needs that those organizations are filling elsewhere, and figuring out how do we help establish that, if they're doing something in Greenville that could help in Allendale, like how do we get that from Greenville to Allendale so that those communities have those resources?
In business, we call those people connectors. People that say, well, I don't do that, but I know somebody who does. I don't have a solution for that, but I know somebody who does. And let me see if I can't pair you up with this person or that person. It seems like as a lieutenant governor, that could be a really effective role. Just visiting around, getting to know people, patching together this community group with that community group. As you mentioned, it's largely a ceremonial role, a sort of just in case if something happens to the governor kind of role. But ultimately, like, there's so much opportunity as lieutenant governor to be the advocate for different community groups and to bring those really important issues to the forefront if you decide to be a connector in that capacity.
Absolutely. And using it as a platform to hold people accountable. A lot of people don't realize, it's really frustrating at times when you see the campaign ads that use the fear tactics by both sides, or the schoolyard bullying tactics that some people use in their campaigns. And they use that to, I don't know, it's like they want to establish this idea that they are somehow going to be able to fix these things in this particular way. The fact of the matter is that South Carolina is a legislative state. The legislature holds the power. And so, they can tell you all day long that they're going to use their pen, their veto pen or whatever, but it's not going to happen if the Senate doesn't let it happen. And so, the key is working with the lawmakers, finding the ways to make change there. And, yeah.
The executive branch has an opportunity to, through policy and through procedure and through management of each of those divisions. We talked about this in the beginning of the campaign as we're doing a lot of research. Like, what do you actually do in this job? What does this role actually look like, right? We've seen overreach by state agencies, thinking specifically SLED. We've seen incompetence in other agencies. You mentioned our friends at the DOT. We've also seen misguided attempts to either circumvent the law or just enforce it badly in places like agriculture, right? Like there just seems to be a lot of disparate parts moving around. What's one thing you think South Carolinians could unify behind? Like, what's one thing you think, like, if you were the leader, you're a messenger, you're somebody that's going to go out there and like rally around the flag, everybody, here's a thing. What do you think South Carolinians all would get behind, or what would your message be to like try to get them to roll up their sleeves and work together?
I think liberty. I think liberty, if that sounds so trite, right? But it's true. You think about South Carolina's history. We are a proud bunch of us sandlappers. We're very proud people. And we like our liberty. We like our freedom, and I think that runs in our blood. And I think that sharing that message, and it's not just the freedom to do what I want to do, right? It's the freedom to be the community. It's the freedom to provide the services, to, do all the things. So I think, I think that's the message, right? Like, this is what liberty actually looks like. It comes with accountability. It comes with personal responsibility, but it also comes with that sense of community. We can be that village again. We don't have to be divided. We can be one South Carolina. We can be one team. It can be us against the world, because together we're stronger. We're always going to be stronger together, and we have much more in common than we have, differences. And we just have to find what we have in common. We have to work together. That's it.
We're 23 minutes into our Q&A, and we just got our first Q. All right. So Chuck Fields asked, how does a red state not have school choice? And we haven't actually talked about school choice yet. So do you want to weigh in on this? What's the school choice scenario?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different view on education than a lot of libertarians do, because unlike most libertarians, I am not vehemently opposed to public education. I think that putting education back into the hands, again, of the communities, I think that allowing the communities to better drive the education opportunities that they have for their children. As it relates to school choice, I think that's just one part of the conversation. It's just a small part of the conversation, because there's a lot more that we should be talking about. I think that we should allow for community organizations to assist for, instance, after school programs, extracurricular programs. One of the things that Bruce has talked about as the gubernatorial candidate is better education around family planning and household management. And that's something that we could easily partner with community organizations to provide as an elective course for kids, right? To help hopefully circumvent things like teenage pregnancy, which creates the conversation, part of the conversation around abortion. So it's very cyclical, right? And I'm not trying to skirt the question about school choice, because the answer is I don't know why we don't have school choice. I don't know why we don't do half the things that we should be doing in this state. I mean, that's the answer. But yeah, I mean, I think that every parent should be able to drive their child's education. I think that they should be able to choose what schools go to. And I think that we should really look at pulling away from federal funding for schools, because that comes with strings. It holds us to certain standards, and it creates this one size fits all scenario. And not every student fits into those boxes. They just don't. And I think that our teachers should be freed to teach, because that's their passion. That's what they went to school to do. That's what they've gotten educated to do. And I think they should be, given the reins to be able to do that. And parents should definitely be able to help drive those opportunities.
We've had a good bit of conversation about the education platform. If people are interested in seeing it, go out to reevesforsc.com, because we did work with teachers to build that platform and talk to them about removing barriers like benchmarking and that kind of thing. And everybody wants smaller classrooms, right? But the only way to do that is to get more teachers, as to bring more people into the opportunities. There need to be more opportunities, which means there need to be more schools. And that doesn't mean government-run schools or publicly funded schools, but it could certainly be, all kinds of alternatives out there. The next question is from Kelsey. What is your reaction to civil asset forfeiture not being overturned yet? So this is that Supreme Court decision where they basically kicked it to the legislators. You said this is a legislative state. What do you want to see the legislators do about civil asset forfeiture?
Stop robbing the citizens of South Carolina. I get real mad about this. I get real angry about this, y'all. I get real angry. And actually, somebody commented, I'd posted on Twitter about this very thing, about civil asset forfeiture being upheld. And I made the comment that I call on all of our states' law enforcement agencies to immediately stop robbing the citizens, because they can choose not to enforce these, right? Like they can choose not to use civil asset forfeiture as a revenue generator, because that's what it is. And for those of you who don't know what civil asset forfeiture is, essentially, if you are suspected of a crime, they can take your belongings. So any cash that you have on your persons, any valuables that you have on your persons, they can take those things simply because they believe that they are the product of a crime or were used in the commission of a crime. There is no due process. And oftentimes the people do not get these items back, even once they've been set free, like dismissed, no charges, and still don't get their things back. It's nothing more than a cash grab. For the state has the ability to grab cash. These local law enforcement agencies have the ability to grab cash. And the comment that I got with regard to that statement was, specifically about law enforcement officers putting their lives on the line. And let me be very clear, I will never seek to disparage good law enforcement officers, because there are a lot of good men and women who put on that uniform every day, who put on that badge, and they go out and they serve their communities and they do what they were hired to do. They do what the public trusts them to do. But there are a lot of them who don't, and they take advantage of these types of things. And it's not okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and the points that are being made in our Q&A, it's the state versus your stuff, not you. And the crime is owning property. How is that even a crime, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to have life, liberty, and property.
Yeah.
I promised you, Jessica, that we would be done at 9:00 so that you could get yourself to the gym tonight. I admire your 9 p.m. gym routine. I'm fully jealous of it. And I
it keeps me sane.
when the campaign season is done, you'll be coming back to our Parenting Porcupines broadcast, and we'll be glad to unpack a lot of these topics for people. So
Yes.
those of you who are going to be watching this after it's already taken place, because I'm going to let Jessica go, then by all means, leave your questions and we'll get into Facebook and we'll do the best we can to answer them. Jessica will get in there and do the best she can to answer them. And then we will publish our upcoming schedule for Parenting Porcupines and be glad to have these conversations again and again and again in this live stream scenario as we continue to spread the message of liberty. Thank you for doing the good work, Jessica, for putting yourself out there, putting yourself on the ballot, talking to people, getting to know South Carolina citizens. This is an uphill climb for a third party, specifically for a libertarian candidate. And I just want to thank you for doing the good work that you're doing. We're so grateful to you.
Thanks for the support.
Good luck next week. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.